Good evening. The time is now 5:30 on January the 17th, 2018. And this public meeting of the District of Columbia State Board of Education is now called to order. The roll will now be called to determine the presence of a quorum. Mr. Hayworth, please call the roll.
Mr. Jones.
Mr. Hayworth.
Ms. Williams.
Here.
Mr. Jacobson.
Present.
Ms. Carter.
Present.
Ms. Wilson-Phelan.
Present.
Ms. Wattenberg.
Present.
Dr. Woodruff.
Present.
Mr. Whedon.
Present.
Mr. Batchelor.
Present.
Ms. Rhodes. Ms. Rhodes. Ms. Robinson.
Present.
Mr. President, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Hayworth. A quorum has been determined, and the State Board will proceed now with the business portion of the meeting. Each year, the State Board must elect a president and vice president to provide leadership and oversight over the board. As the longest-serving member of the State Board, it is my honor and pleasure to serve as the election officer for the role of president. I will now entertain nominations for president. Seconds are not needed for nominations. Body, I will now entertain nominations.
Representative Jones, I nominate Karen Williams.
Karen Williams from Ward 7, do you accept?
I do.
Are there any other nominations? Seeing no further nominations for president, candidate for the position of president, Karen Williams from Ward 7. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Having hearing none, Karen Williams from Ward 7 is elected president. Congratulations.
Thank you, members of the board. I am proud to continue as your president and look forward to working with each of you. As one of our student reps recently said, our focus must always be on what is best for our students. Our students depend on adults to provide a system that gives them support they need to succeed. We must do a better job. As president of the State Board of Education, I will do everything possible within the scope of this office to improve academic outcomes for our students, and I urge my colleagues to join me in this effort. Excuse me. I will now entertain nominations for vice president. Seconds are not needed for nomination.
President Williams, I'd like to nominate Jack Jacobson for vice president.
Jack Jacobson has been nominated for vice president. Any other nominations? Seeing no further nominations, we have one candidate for the position of vice president, Jack Jacobson, Ward 2. All in favor of the first candidate, Jack Jacobson, from Ward 2 for the position of vice president?
Aye.
Aye.
Congratulations. I look forward to your continued assistance as the State Board continues to work to increase academic achievement and equality in the District of Columbia. Members, we have a draft agenda before us. Are there any corrections or additions?
Madam President.
Yes, Mr. Batchelor.
Madam President, I move to add consideration of a resolution on the Ballou audit as agenda item number 8 on our agenda.
Second. Discussion.
Discussion? Ms.
I'm opposed, given that this was presented to us less than an hour ago for me personally. There's not been adequate time to review in order to have discussion in a manner that is befitting of this board.
Any further discussion?
The motion is on adding an agenda item. It is a majority vote.
We have to have a
Ayes and nays.
roll call?
No.
All right, all in favor of adding SR 18-2 to the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Roll call now.
Madam President, roll call, please.
Roll call.
Ms. Williams. Ms. Williams.
Aye.
Mr. Jacobson. Aye. Ms. Carter.
Aye.
Ms. Wilson Phelan.
No.
Ms. Wattenberg. Aye. Dr. Woodruff.
Aye.
Mr. Jones.
Aye.
Mr. Whedon.
Aye.
Mr. Batchelor.
Aye.
Ms. Rhodes.
Aye.
Ms. Robinson.
Aye.
Madam President, the ayes have it.
Point of order.
Ms. Phelan?
Madam President, doesn't it require a suspension of the rules to add an item to the agenda that has not been presented to the public 48 hours in advance in accordance with the Open Meetings Act?
Yes.
Madam President, that is correct.
Yes.
Then we cannot proceed with the motion that was just adopted?
It would need a second vote of suspension of the rules.
I'd move we suspend the rules.
Second.
All,
So roll call.
roll call?
The motion is on suspension of the rules for consideration of an additional agenda item. President Williams. Mr. Jacobson. Aye. Ms. Carter.
Aye.
Ms. Wilson Phelan.
No.
Ms. Wattenberg.
Aye.
Dr. Woodruff.
Aye.
Mr. Jones.
Aye.
Mr. Whedon.
Aye.
Mr. Batchelor.
Aye.
Ms. Rhodes.
Aye.
Ms. Robinson.
Aye.
President Williams.
Aye.
The motion carries. The rules are suspended and the item is added to the agenda.
So the motion is approved. Members, we have minutes from our January 3rd, 2018 working session before us. Are there corrections or additions to the minutes? Seeing no changes, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
The motion being properly moved and seconded, I will ask, all in favor, say aye. All
Aye.
opposed? The motion is approved. Good evening. My name is Karen Williams, Ward 7 Representative and President of the State Board of Education. On behalf of the members of the District of Columbia State Board of Education, I want to welcome our guests and our viewing public to our Wednesday, January 17th public meeting. The State Board typically holds its regularly scheduled meetings on the third Wednesday of every month here in the Old Council Chambers at 441 4th Street Northwest. Beginning in November 2017, the metro entrance closest to our building, Judiciary Square at 4th Street entrance is closed for an estimated 10 months for escalator repair. The S Street exit of the Judiciary Square station is still open. If you plan to visit the State Board, our offices, or attend one of our meetings, please plan accordingly. Tonight's agenda includes a ceremonial resolution honoring the achievements of District Tier 1 public charter schools and another recognizing National School Choice Week in the District of Columbia. Part of the role of the State Board is to be the conduit from the community to the government. We are pleased to recognize the outstanding hard work of our public charter schools tonight. We will also be welcoming input from members of the public related to the school report card content proposal from the Office of the State Superintendent of Education. The proposal has received input from more than 2,000 district residents and has been the subject of multiple meetings of the board's ESSA task force, including last week. The school report card is a vital tool for parents and students, and I want to note specifically the hard work of OSSE and the State Board of Education staff through this process. We have dedicated part of this meeting to public comment related to the content proposal, and we ask that those are here to provide recommendations to be patient as we make our way through a fairly full and long agenda. Before we move to comment by the State Superintendent, I want to speak about the reports being released to the unfair and extremely frustrating practices in district high schools related to grades. The State Board last month decided to delay our consideration of a resolution related to the situation. Yesterday, the initial report was issued at a press conference that I attended. The information contained within the report has not been surprising to anyone that has been listening to the students, parents, and teachers and principals across the city. High graduation rates paired with low proficiency scores are indicative of this larger scale problem. I'm glad that we are finally addressing it, and I appreciate the mayor, chancellor, and the superintendent for starting the investigation. We have to ensure that things like employee training and procedures do not become additional barriers that our students have to climb. Our job is to remove those barriers and to provide opportunity for success. We must do better. I will now turn the floor over to our State Superintendent, Hansel Kong, for any opening statement she may have.
Thank you, President Williams, and congratulations to you and Vice President Jacobson for your election this evening. My name is Hansel Kang, and I'm the State Superintendent of Education at OSSE. As you know, OSSE will publish a statewide report card under the Every Student Succeeds Act by December 2018. Since last summer, OSSE has collaborated extensively with the State Board of Education, the State Board's ESSA task force, and community partners to develop a list of the content that will go on the report card in its first year. Consistent with OSSE's strategic plan, we aimed to ensure that data is accessible, accurate, and actionable to our stakeholders. And we are committed to ensuring that the report card in particular is as useful and informative as possible for parents. That required us to think strategically about how to obtain feedback from parents on what information would be most helpful to them. To do so, OSSE developed a suite of materials, including a toolkit to use in in-person meetings and an online survey to gather public feedback from the community. OSSE worked closely with our partners, and especially with the State Board's ESSA task force, to use the toolkit with community organizations that have existing constituencies and networks of parents, and through that gather feedback from parents and families on what information would be most helpful to see on the report card. As a result of those efforts, we've collected nearly 2,000 pieces of feedback on report card content. This has been the most extensive public engagement process that OSSE has had to date, and I believe that it is an important step in the right direction. Based on the feedback gathered, OSSE developed a preliminary report card content proposal and presented it to the ESSA task force and the State Board of Education in December 2017. For the past month and a half, OSSE has continued to have productive conversations with task force members, State Board of Education members, and other stakeholders on the content proposal. You pushed us to do more, especially on teacher data and parent engagement, and I believe this content proposal responds effectively to your input. I'm pleased that the State Board of Education will provide yet another opportunity for the public to provide their thoughts on the content proposal this evening. It is a robust proposal that contains over 50 data elements and includes information on student achievement, school programs and offerings, discipline, transportation, college readiness, and more. OSSI has presented the proposed content list at the January ESSA Task Force meeting, and you may find it on our website with our materials on ESSA implementation. I look forward to continuing our conversation tonight and a vote by the State Board of Education, hopefully at its February meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent. The State Board welcomes public participation in activities under its authority. At every public meeting, we begin with testimony from public witnesses on education-related matters. Your comments will become part of our official record. If you're a member of the public and would like to speak at a future public meeting, please contact our staff by email at sboe@dc.gov or by calling 202-741-0888. Tonight we have one witness, Ms. Marilyn Holmes. Would you please come to the table? You have 3 minutes. Please note you must use your microphone.
Oh, yes.
And the microphones are already on and ready. You also see in the upper right-hand side of the witness table a timer. The light will be green for the first 2.5 minutes, and then will turn yellow for the last 30 seconds, and will turn red after 3 minutes. Please begin when you're ready.
All righty. Thank you so much for this opportunity to address the State Board of Education once again. Happy New Year, everyone. I'm always happy to come here and share with you all the work that Total Sunshine does in the community. Total Sunshine, Inc. is a nonprofit. We've been around in D.C. working with the young people in the community for the last 18 years now. This is our 18th year. We just had our birthday of the corporation with Martin Luther King on the 15th, so it was a fantastic time to celebrate as well. And Total Sunshine is also a television show. And we have won some awards in the city for Best Community Focus, Best Youth Focus, and we are all about supporting our young people. This is why I come here every single time that I can. Now, I know that I've been a little absent this school year, and I must apologize. Things have been very hectic. However, you all can look forward to seeing me over the coming months at the public meetings, because I'm sure you know, as most people that talk to me know, that our annual reward ceremony is coming up, and it's time to start smiling, because we're going to invite every single valedictorian and salutatorian from Washington, D.C. to come to our annual reward ceremony and pick up their laptop for college. So far, with our school grade incentive program, we have supported more than 600 DC top graduates, and that just makes me smile to think of that. Every single year we cast out for support, because it's always a needed thing, and I come here to make sure that I share the information about our program, because it's not done easily each time, and it generally takes quite a bit of work. Now, it's a citywide thing. We invite every single top graduate, valedictorian and salutatorian, from every public charter school and every public school, all the high schools in the city. So every year we have roughly 60 to 70 students to support. Now, I'll tell you, it's something else, because my dream, I have a Total Sunshine dream of giving brand new laptops to DC's top graduates. We've given out used laptops. We've given out refurbished laptops. We've given out tablets, brand new tablets. But we have yet to give brand new laptops to these students who have been so diligent and have made straight A's for 4 years. And they haven't had any problems with their attendance either. These young people are stellar. I'm sure everyone can start smiling when they think about a top graduate. And so supporting them, of course, is paramount. Now let's see here. June 14th. That's the date we have set up for this year. It's always generally on a Thursday, and this year's no different. So June 14th, it's generally in the evening. It's probably going to be likely about 4 p.m. Okay, see, my time is getting short. It's going to be about 4 p.m. on June 14th. We will be sending information through. I'm sure everyone will see their emails coming through about the actual logistics of the program. Now, if someone wants to know more information about our school grade incentive program, they can go to totalsunshine.org. They can email me at info@totalsunshine.org. They can call the Sunshine Line at 202-575-0462. Feel free to get in touch with us, because we're always looking for people that are proud of these young people and want to support them as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All righty. Y'all have a good one.
Next on our agenda is consideration of a ceremonial resolution. We will consider both of the resolutions and then take a short recess to allow for presentation of the resolutions to the honorees. We will begin with a resolution honoring our 51 Tier 1 public charter schools for 2017. I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Ashley Carter, our at-large representative, to make the motion on the resolution.
I motion to make a make.
I did the wrong thing. I apologize.
Are you paying attention?
I apologize, Madam President. The next item on the agenda is the amended item, the graduation resolution. So we need to do that one first before we get to ceremonial resolutions. I apologize.
Point of order. We actually should have had it done prior, so we've now skipped the item that was just amended. So that would mean we would need to amend the agenda again, correct? It was item number 8.
It was item number 8. That is correct. So I apologize, Madam President. We will need another motion to amend the agenda.
So moved.
Second? Any? Someone second?
Second.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Having been properly moved in, no, next on the agenda is consideration of a resolution related to the graduation investigation. Mr. Batchelor, would you like to make the motion?
So moved, Madam President.
Is there a second?
Second.
Having been properly moved and seconded, Mr. Haywood, would you read the resolution into the record?
State Board of Education resolution calling for an independent investigation into data and accountability practices in district schools, SR 18-2. Whereas on November 28, 2017, WAMU reported that many Ballou High School seniors in the class of 2017 were granted diplomas despite having missed weeks and sometimes months of school, that grading policies prevented teachers from issuing deserved grades, that teachers faced pressure to inflate grades and pass students despite absences and or failure to complete assignments, that students were placed against policy into less rigorous credit recovery classes, and that teachers who resisted these practices faced retaliation. Whereas subsequent reporting from multiple media outlets as well as public testimony has reinforced these allegations and suggests they are not confined to Ballou High School but exist in other schools across the district. Whereas educating our children and preparing them for success in college and in the workforce is a paramount priority of our city, and failing to do so is harmful and unacceptable. Whereas the allegations and information uncovered through the media, public testimony, and the preliminary audit conducted on behalf of the Office of the State Superintendent of Education by Alvarez and Marsal, released on January 16, 2018, point to a larger problem with oversight and accountability by both local education agencies and the state education agency. Whereas the DC State Board of Education approves high school graduation requirements, the metrics used to judge school quality, including graduation rates, and citywide attendance rules. Whereas in order to approve regulations and policy with fidelity, the SBOE must understand how requirements are being implemented and whether standards are being met by the staff of schools, LEAs, and the SEA. Whereas a June 2015 report submitted to the Council of the District of Columbia by the National Academy of Sciences, report on the DC Public Education Reform Amendment Act, PARA, of 2007, indicating that it questioned whether the current oversight structure provides sufficient monitoring of the educational opportunities provided to students attending District of Columbia Public Schools and District of Columbia Public Charter Schools through the city, and called for the district to establish institutional arrangements that will support ongoing independent evaluation of its education system. And whereas the SBOE is thankful that Mayor Bowser, Deputy Mayor Niles, Chancellor Wilson, and Superintendent Kang have released information uncovered in the internal investigation, but remain concerned that because those responsible for the investigation reported the same structure they are investigating, additional independent verification of information is needed. Now therefore be it resolved that the State Board of Education advises that the DC Auditor commission an independent review of the criteria and standards that underlie high school graduation and examine school-level execution of these policies across all state-regulated LEAs, including the role of credit recovery, grading policy, attendance, discipline and suspension policies, pressure on teacher and school administrators to raise grades and/or pass students, and allegations of retaliation against teachers and school administrators who fail to act on that pressure. That this review examine the institutional conditions and culture that have allegedly created an educational system that prioritizes appearances and outcomes data over genuine improvement. That this review be undertaken in a transparent manner that encourages public input from various sectors and stakeholders about the issues to ensure that a full range of questions are asked, and that the findings are available to the public when completed. Be it further resolved that the State Board of Education advises that the DC Auditor examine the effectiveness of the current oversight structure of DCPS and charter schools. Be it further resolved that the State Board of Education shall conduct an internal examination of attendance regulations, including the implementation of the 80-20 rule and its impact on student attendance. Be it further resolved that the State Board of Education shall formulate and submit to the Office of the State Superintendent of Education recommendations on foundational credit recovery regulations by May 2018. And be it finally resolved that the State Board advises that the Council of the District of Columbia consider amendment to Section 403 of the State Board of Education Establishment Act of 2007, DC Official Code 38-2652, to require district agency compliance with information and data requests that aid in the effective execution of its statutory duties and authority.
Discussion?
Ms. Laura Fair.
I appreciate that this resolution is coming from an angle of wanting to do what's right by students, and I trust my colleague, Mr. Batchelor, as my co-chair on the graduation task force, inherently in his intentions. At the same time, I think it's incredibly important that we, as elected officials, consider how we use taxpayer dollars prudently each and every time we make recommendations to the public. I don't find that this resolution does that. The number one reason is because we have a report forthcoming in 2 weeks that will address some of the very topics that are outlined in this resolution. We received a report today that yesterday that outlines some of the very elements of this resolution. Yet we decided to suspend the rules tonight, which is an element of our rules of order that should be used in times of urgency when we think there's something that must be acted on immediately. When we're going to get a report in 2 weeks that could potentially change the very nature of what this resolution should say. It should change the content to reflect the information that's already being investigated, for which hundreds of thousands of dollars that come from our education funds are being put into. It makes this, for these reasons, I am unclear about what is the true purpose of this resolution. To suspend the rules and to not allow public comment, not actually allow even more than an hour of consideration, at least for me personally. I received this 1 hour ago, because we think there's something that's going to happen in the next 2 weeks that cannot wait. That doesn't follow a logic flow to me at all. And then that draws me to wonder what is truly motivating this resolution. How is waiting 2 weeks not helping our students more when it would be requiring more money for answers that we are about to receive? It all doesn't add up, and it makes me really truly wonder about what's motivating this, other than the best interests of our students. I look forward to hearing from my colleagues in response to that. Again, I honor the intent behind this to get to the bottom of a troubling issue that many of us have heard about several times prior to the WAMU article. But the timing of this does not make sense to me at all. We're about to get important information that would lead this resolution, or some version of it, to be much, much more relevant. Instead, we're trying to jump on this, suspending the rules to do so without any opportunity for thorough review or public input. And I really want to call upon my colleagues to consider all of those elements as you're thinking about this today.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Madam President.
Mr. Batchelor.
Thank you. And first, I'd like to thank my colleagues for their indulgence in considering this resolution. Obviously, we've all looked at the findings of the internal investigation, and I think many of us were, I think we're shocked by the detail, but not necessarily shocked by the outcome. And so I think it leaves us at a place where we have to figure out, as the elected representatives on this body, the only elected body that deals with education issues, but also as elected officials who've heard our constituents say time and time again that they wanted an independent voice to look into these allegations, that what do we do? And so you know, while I appreciate my colleagues, Ms. Wilson-Phelan's comments, and I understand some of her concerns, I think what we know is that, or at least what we're outlining in this resolution, I think many of us know won't necessarily change with the outcomes of the information that we'll receive. I think we, you know, while we don't have the details of what will come out, I think we know the aspects and the issues that will be addressed in the follow-up report. And I think many of my colleagues in conversation since we received the initial report are saying that despite what we receive in 2 weeks, one, we need more information to effectively do our jobs and serve the children and families of this city in an effective way. But two, that the outcry and the concern about an independent voice to consider these issues has not changed since the report was released. And so, you know, I asked my colleagues to follow the voice of our constituents. They have told me time and time again in meetings and on the street and in emails that we need an outside body, someone separated from this government and from the chain of command in the executive, to look at these issues, verify what we may have received, but also give us the additional information that we need to effectively do our jobs and to effectively make policy that can turn this thing around. That has not changed. It will not change. And I think the time is now to begin our work as elected representatives, but also as education experts to do what's right by our students and families. So thank you, Madam President.
Any other discussion?
Madam President.
Mr. Jacobson.
I want to stand with my colleague from Ward 8, and while I appreciate my colleague from Ward 1, our colleague from Ward 1's comments and her fidelity and fiduciary duties as elected officials in the district, we're spending $2.5 billion a year on education in the city. I don't see a problem with an independent report by the DC auditor costing $300,000 or less, verifying the findings. I've told that to the education leaders who have called me. I've had conversations with many folks throughout the city government regarding this. We need to understand the full scope of the problem so that we as elected leaders can work on the solutions together. That's my goal here. We've, as a body, as a board, known that these problems have existed. It wasn't the right time, though, in June to really bring this forward when public witnesses came to us and told us about the problems with teacher turnover and specifically with Ballou. We weren't the right body. It wasn't the right time. It wasn't the right time last month when we tabled the issue and we're told, no, just wait more, just wait more, just wait more. I'm tired of waiting, and I'm tired of having our children wait and our students wait, because we're losing another class, another generation of students every time we just wait a little bit longer to act. I'd like to act tonight. Thank you.
Any additional discussion?
Thank you. I am a senior this year, so I will be leaving the school, and my class of about 140 students will be graduating, and I think that acting now is the best time to act, because there are so many students out here who are graduating who might not be able to make it through college, and I feel like that a lot of students should be able to make it through college, especially because it's being pushed on us all the time, and that right now you need a college degree to get a job out here. So I believe that acting now and waiting, as our colleague said, is not the best decision, because you can wait 2 weeks, but one semester is already passed, and after this semester, it'll be really hard to stop this next graduating class from having any problems. And you do have next year, but you were presented with it this year, and I'm pretty sure it was presented before, but waiting is not helpful in any situation, and I'm sorry that I can't tell you everything that I want to say, but I just feel as though that waiting is not something that anyone should be subjected to, especially because there are actually all of your constituents are parents of children who are in DCPS and DC charter schools who want to see their child graduate with a degree that is something that they can have a sound foundation on when they go to college. And I know that when I graduate, I want to make sure that I go to college and have a sound foundation. And I feel like I've done that, but I've done it by myself and not really with the help of DCPS. And it's saddening, but that's kind of how it happened. But
thank you, Ms. Rose. Ms. Robinson, you want to close the discussion?
Thank you. I agree with my colleagues on how we should act now, because waiting is what has been occurring a lot. And since we are the State Board of Education, our priority should be the students. And with waiting, that just comes to show to students that we aren't kind of with them. And I think that things such as the structure being looked into is important, because everyone has someone who they should report to. And when you look at the importance of that, it should all come down, it should all trickle down to the importance of how it's helping the students. Thank you.
Thank you. If there is no further discussion, if there is none, I will call the question. The motion is on approval of State Board's Resolution CR 18-1.
Roll call, Madam President.
Mr. Jacobson. Aye. Ms. Carter.
Aye.
Ms. Wilson-Phelan.
No.
Ms. Wattenberg.
Aye.
Dr. Woodruff.
Aye.
Mr. Jones.
Aye.
Mr. Whedon.
Aye.
Mr. Batchelor.
Aye.
Ms. Rhodes.
Aye.
Ms. Robinson.
Aye.
President Williams. Madam President, the motion carries.
Now we will have the consideration of ceremonial resolution. What is it? Yeah, wait a minute. Excuse me. Okay. So we will begin. We will do our second resolution honoring our 51 Tier 1 public charter schools for 2017. I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Carter, our at-large representative, to make the motion on this resolution.
So moved.
Second. Is there a second?
Second.
Having been properly moved and seconded, Mr. Haywood, would you read the resolution into the record?
State Board of Education resolution to commend the 2017 Tier 1 DC Public Charter Schools, CR 18-1. Whereas it is a vision of the District of Columbia State Board of Education that all District of Columbia students attend schools that prepare them to lead productive lives, doing the work of their choosing. Whereas the DC Public Charter School Board recognizes the public charter schools that receive between 65 and 100 points on a 100-point scale as Tier 1 schools. Whereas Tier 1 is the DC Public Charter School Board's highest possible rating, indicating strong academic performance. Whereas in 2017, the DC Public Charter School Board recognized 51 such schools. Whereas those schools are Apple Tree Early Learning Center in Columbia Heights, Apple Tree Early Learning Center in Lincoln Park, Basis DC High School, Brea PCS Early Childhood, Brea PCS Adult Education, Capital City High School, Capital City Lower School, Carlos Rosario International, Cedar Tree Academy, Center City Brightwood, Center City Petworth, Center City Shaw, DC Bilingual, DC Prep Anacostia Elementary School, DC Prep Benning Elementary School, DC Prep Edgewood Elementary School, DC Prep Edgewood Middle School, District of Columbia International School, E.L. Haynes Elementary School, Eagle Academy, Capitol Riverfront, Early Childhood Academy, Elsie Whitlow Stokes Community Freedom, Friendship Blow Pierce Elementary School, Friendship Blow Pierce Middle School, Friendship PCS Chamberlain Elementary School, Friendship Chamberlain Middle School, Friendship Woodridge Elementary School, Inspired Teaching Demonstration PCS, KIPP DC Arts and Technology Academy, KIPP College Preparatory Academy, KIPP Connect Academy, KIPP Discover Academy, KIPP Grow Academy, KIPP Heights Academy, KIPP Leap Academy, KIPP Northeast Academy, KIPP Promise Academy, KIPP Quest Academy, KIPP Spring Academy, Latin American Montessori Bilingual, Mundo Verde Bilingual, Seed PCS of Washington, D.C., SILA PCS, The Next Step PCS El Próximo Paso, Thurgood Marshall Academy, Two Rivers PCS on 4th Street, Two Rivers PCS Young, Washington Latin Middle School, Washington Latin Upper School, Washington Yu Ying, and Youth Build PCS. Now therefore be it resolved that the State Board congratulates all 51 of the district's Tier 1 public charter schools on receiving this classification and commends them for their exemplary efforts and achievements.
Is there any discussion on this resolution?
President Williams, I would just like to say congratulations to all of the representatives here today. Thank you for coming out tonight, and congratulations again for being a Tier 1 school and showing the leadership of all of our schools, and we can do great things in our city. Thank you.
Madam President.
Mr. Batchelor.
I'd just like to say very quickly, I just want to, I want to thank Ms. Carter for her recognition of all of our students, and particularly to all of our school communities in Ward 8. I want to thank, obviously, the hardworking educators who go to work every day to make something like this possible, and obviously want to congratulate our students for all of their hard work and dedication to their education and upward mobility. And this, this recognition is theirs primarily, and so I'm really excited to honor all of these school communities, including my alma mater, tonight. Thank you.
Madam President,
I'd
I'd like to congratulate all 51 schools for a job well done. It's an honor to be a Tier 1 school. I just share some concerns that some of them have very high suspension rates. And I believe that should be part of what should be considered when you talk about becoming a Tier 1 school. I know that is out of our jurisdiction. However, it's something that needs to be addressed when you have 2/3 or you have of this normal suspension, you're 2 times higher or 3 times higher, and that does happen in our city. And I think it should go across the board. That suspension should be considered in all our schools because you can easily become a successful school if you suspend the children that need the most support. And that is a major concern of mine. But congratulations. I'm glad to know that we do have Tier 1 schools, and there are excellent children and parents and teachers and administrators that make all this possible. I would like to see more Tier 1 schools. And so I'd like to say thank you and much success.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'd like to call the question. The motion on approval of State Board Ceremonial Resolution 18-1. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? The motion is approved. National School Choice Week Recognition Ceremonial Resolution. Next on our agenda is a resolution recognizing National School Choice Week, being held January 21st through the 27th. Ms. Carter, would you like to make the motion for this resolution, please?
So moved.
Is there a second? Is there a second?
Second.
Having been properly moved and seconded, Mr. Haywood, would you read the resolution into the record. I know your voice is tired. I'm sorry.
State Board of Education resolution to recognize National School Choice Week, CR 18-2. Whereas National School Choice Week is a nonpartisan initiative that seeks to raise awareness of K through 12 education options available to students in the United States. Whereas since 2011, the first year in which National School Choice Week was held, there have been more than 58,000 affiliated events held. Whereas National School Choice Week recognizes all K through 12 options, including traditional public schools, public charter schools, public magnet schools, private schools, online academies, and homeschooling according to the organization of the same name. And whereas this year's National School Choice Week will be held January 21st through 27th. Now therefore be it resolved that the DC State Board of Education thanks the organizers of National School Choice Week for their efforts to raise awareness of the range of options available to students in the District of Columbia and nationwide.
Is there any discussion on the resolution?
President Williams,
Yes. Carter?
I just want to say that I'm very proud of the many different school options that we have in our city. Washington, D.C., although the State Board of Education only looks at issues affecting traditional public schools and our public charter schools here in the city, I think that our city is a leader in the school choice movement because of the wide range of options that we have, and because of that, we have become a leader. Many other states in the country looking to us, and although we are an urban area with many different students in many different areas, we can show through our choice that we are a leader of excellence in education options. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, I would like to call the question. The motion on approval of State Board Ceremonial Resolution 18-2. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion is passed. The State Board will now recess for 5 minutes in order to present the resolutions. If the representatives from the Tier 1 schools would gather in front of the table, we'll take a photo with you first. NSCW representatives, please wait to my right, your left, near the staff table.
So the members of the board could take seats here, and we're out, Tier 1 folks gather up in the front. Thank you. Please come on up. The Tier 1 folks just right to the right and to the left. The members in the center, please.
All right.
Jack, can you come sit in front, please? Thank you. Perfect. Mark? More. Mark, you want your Ruth? Which one of you two? Yeah. There you go. Someone sit. All right, can we move this way just slightly? Thank you.
Excellent. All right, so if I could have everyone face this way. Everyone ready? All right. Great.
Great. And now the representatives of National School Choice Week. If our Tier 1 folks could head out this way, and then National School Choice Week folks. Anyone? Great, yes. Board members, please stay where you are. I did too, but I don't see her. Okay, so board members, we're going to take our quick staff photo. Sorry, Ruth, sorry.
That's okay.
All right, everyone smile.
Great.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Next on our agenda is consideration of a resolution establishing State Board of Education committees for 2018. I'm going to turn to Mr. Jacobson, Ward 2 representative, to make a motion on the resolution. Mr. Jacobson?
Thank you, President Williams. I would move the committee structure as presented at the working session 2 weeks ago.
Is there a second?
Second.
Having been properly moved and seconded, Mr. Haywood, would you read the resolution into the record, please?
State Board of Education resolution to appoint committees, SR 18-2. Whereas District of Columbia law permits the State Board of Education to organize itself by order. Whereas the State Board intends to continue its work improving academic achievement and equity. And whereas the State Board of Education believes that establishing committees will aid its work. Therefore, be it resolved that the State Board of Education establishes the following committees. Administration and Budget. Chair Jack Jacobson, Ward 2. Members Mark Jones, Ward 5. Lynette Woodruff, Ward 4. Karen Williams, ex officio, Ward 7. Student Advisory Committee. Co-chairs Talia Rhodes from Woodson and High School and Tatiana Robinson from Ballou High School. The members are the students of the District of Columbia Public and Public Charter Schools, with Karen Williams serving ex officio. Educational Excellence and Equity on Regulations and Laws. Chair Laura Wilson Phelan, Ward 1. Members Ashley Carter at Large, Marcus Batchelor, Ward 8, and Karen Williams, ex officio. Educational Excellence and Equity on Educational Standards. Co-chairs Ruth Wattenberg of Ward 3 and Mark Jones of Ward 5. Members Jack Jacobson of Ward 2 and Karen Williams, ex officio. The ESSA Task Force. Chair Dr. Lynette Woodruff, Ward 4. Members Joe Whedon, Ward 6. Jack Jacobson, Ward 2. Karen Williams, ex officio. Public Engagement and Outreach. Co-chairs Marcus Batchelor of Ward 8, Ashley Carter at Large. Members Jack Jacobson, Ward 2, Karen Williams, ex officio. And be it further resolved that the DC State Board of Education appoints Jack Jacobson, Ward 2, to represent the District of Columbia on the National Association of State Board of Education Government Affairs Committee, and Ruth Wattenberg, Ward 3, on the Public Education Positions Committee. Ruth Wattenberg, Ward 3, and Joe Whedon, Ward 6, to represent the district at the Washington Area Boards of Education, and Ashley Carter at large to serve as the alternate delegate to the Everyday Counts Task Force. And be it finally resolved that State Board of Education Resolution 17-2 is hereby repealed, and that this resolution will expire on December 31st, 2018.
Excuse me, any discussion? Seeing none, I'd like to call the question. The motion on approval to State Board of Education Resolution 18-2. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? The motion is approved. Residents of the District of Columbia must be able to compare schools, but they cannot easily do so today because as much of the available information is spread over various reports and not in language accessible to them. The superintendent and the SBOE have been working together to ensure not only will we be able to see how our schools are performing using the same measures, but also to compare other information like if there's a full-time nurse and how quickly schools evaluate a student's need for special education. These are significant changes, and the recommendations the public and our own ESSA task force have made have clearly been heard by OSSE. So thank you, Superintendent. Tonight is another opportunity for members of the public to provide direct recommendations to OSSE and the board prior to our official consideration of the proposal next month. We have 6 witnesses tonight. Each witness will have 3 minutes to speak. Without objection, I would like to allow board members 2 minutes per panel to ask our witnesses any follow-up questions. Any objections? Thank you. For our first panel, Laura Fuchs, Josh Boots, and Tammy Cade. So we'll start with Ms. Fuchs.
All right, good evening. So my name is Laura Fuchs. I'm a Ward 5 resident and a DC Public Schools social studies teacher since 2007. As a member of the DC State Board of Education's ESSA Task Force, I conducted constituency visits in the following groups regarding the content of the report card. The Executive Board of the Washington Teachers Union, the Washington Teachers Union Committee on Political Education, the Ward 7 Education Council, the Senior High Alliance of Parents, Principals, and Educators, and the Ward 4 Education Council, which has informed my testimony tonight. I'm here to express my support for the proposals for the content of this year's school report card, while calling on the DC State Board of Education to put into place guarantees that OSSE will implement processes, checkpoints, and deadlines to improve the report card in the future. For this year, I'm strongly in support of impartial data that communicates to parents the level of experience that their teachers have through the banded years of teaching proposal. There's been significant research on the importance of experience in becoming high-quality teachers and is a vast improvement over the initial proposal, which would have indicated the percentage of first-year teachers. It also focuses on the positive instead of highlighting negative elements of a teaching force. Furthermore, this metric may encourage schools to maintain a good balance of seasoned, mid-career, and new teachers at their school, which improves school climate and community through those teachers' dedication and consistency. The other changes are also moving the report card in what my constituencies would classify as a positive direction, and so I urge you to maintain the proposed changes. But they aren't moving far enough to really demonstrate the positive qualities that neighborhood public schools bring to the equation. As much as possible, the State Board must require of OSSE clear steps to implement further changes in response to the needs of parents and the school communities. The fact is, what is measured becomes a priority. What is measured receives funding. What is measured gets time and attention. Therefore, we must be at the forefront of finding ways to measure beyond tests and attendance. We have to find ways to measure teacher retention and churn, student satisfaction, decision-making processes, overall transparency, and servicing students with special needs, and more. One way to get at a lot of these items is the school climate survey across DCPS and charter schools that engages a wide array of stakeholders. There are models out there that exist and experts who can come in and testify. I implore you to make this a priority and include OSSE in the process so we can get this piloted and ready for the coming years. There is also a dark side to report cards and measurement. Sometimes what is given attention can become subject to gaming, as schools seek to find shortcuts to getting the desired results quickly instead of doing the work authentically. When creating the report card, we need to find ways to help parents create cohesive narratives and interpretations of the data that show what is really going on. Sometimes when a school looks good in one light, it does not always mean that it is good for all students. Schools that resort to practices that essentially push out their low-performing students allow them to game the system instead of actually providing a high-quality education. This will take a lot of work in the design and implementation of the report card, as well as continuously returning to our communities to see how we can improve what is being measured and improve how it is being reported. So please be vigilant of gaming practices in schools so that the pressures can come from so we don't get those pressures coming from trying to game the numbers at the expense of our children, as we can see right now with the graduation rates. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fuchs. Are there any questions? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Boots. Sorry.
Good evening, State Board members. My name is Josh Boots. I am the Executive Director of Empower K-12, an educational data nonprofit that supports schools in terms of using data-driven best practices. I also, like Laura, serve on the State Board's ESSA Task Force. I want to start by thanking Dr. Woodruff for her courage in terms of heading such a group that is unique and diverse and disciplined as well. But I also want to thank Superintendent Hansel Kang and her staff for what I think has been a really great outreach to the public. I have not seen since the only other time that I can think that the State Board and that the OSSE has done such a great job in terms of outreaching to parents and teachers and educators was with My School DC. And I just wanted to thank you for all. I've been to a couple of your sessions, and I also did sessions in each ward except Ward 3 with PAVE, which is the Parent Advocacy Organization. And I think all those went well. And I looked at the recommendations that you guys will be putting on the report card tonight, and I fully agree with those recommendations. I just encourage this board to continue to think as you actively think through how this information is displayed and not thinking about a report card as a card. and thinking about more as a website that will be accessed by these parents. When we met with parents, they were just like, I go to the website. I look at, when they're like, what other kind of websites do you look at in terms of like thinking about information that you get on other products? And they were like, basically Amazon.com and stuff like that. So think about how each of these elements that are on the thing tonight and how they get accessed and what importance they're placed on. And like Laura, I agree we should be measuring what matters. And in some sense, for example, there are measures that are in your list that how much do they reflect the outcomes that we want to drive? I'm just gonna say, for example, is like the teacher certification information for DCPS, and that there is limited research that says teacher certification itself is a measure of teacher quality. Like Laura, I do agree that research does show that the length of tenure at a school is a factor of teacher quality. So like thinking, but that teacher quality is gained by the 3rd year of teaching and progresses to their 10th year, and at the 10th year that's basically when a teacher is maxed out in terms of their ability to affect student growth. And so I just wanted to encourage this board to continue to think through each decision that they make and thinking about it from a research-based, data-driven perspective, and how does that piece of information relate to our ultimate goal, which to me should be the growth and achievement of all of our students across the District of Columbia.
I wonder why you're saying that.
Except Mr. Hayward said 2. All right.
Well, then the witnesses will have to speak very quickly. My question to Ms. Fuchs is about teacher retention. I know that the report card is going to have information on teacher experience, which is very important, and I gather it was a big a decision on the part of OSSI to include that, and I applaud them as you do. It seems to me that a huge issue, the biggest issue in the groups that I held was about teacher retention and the terrible teacher turnover that we have in the city. And I really want to call on the superintendent, on her staff, on our board to continue to push in this report card to include teacher retention data, because it exists. It exists in the school report card for all the charter schools, as I understand it. It's on their websites. And for DC Public Schools, it is very easy to get. I have it. It's on my computer. I can share it. We all know that people have developed that data, and it's available, and I encourage it to be on the report card. The second question I really have for both of you is on progress at the high school level, and I know Ms. Fuchs teaches at the high school level. I know Mr. Boots is very involved in data measurement. And what do you think the effect will be of not having any progress measure for high schools? And what do you think we could do about it under what timeline? Is more for you, and the first more for you.
Well, I agree with you on the teacher churn issue. I mean, if it is possible to get the data in the first report card, all thumbs up to that. If it's not possible, I mean, waiting 1 year to me is not the end of the world if we can start getting that data out there, because parents have a right to know how the environment is for teachers. And if a school is showing a significantly different teacher churn element, then we need to know that.
And the high school progress?
I mean, I wish we were measuring progress. I frankly wish we were using the SAT and not PARC.
Per what Ms. Fuchs said earlier in terms of teacher retention, I think we want to make sure that we're focusing on retention of teachers of quality. Just saying teacher retention could lead to the same sorts of things that Ms. Fuchs was talking about before. Are we just retaining teachers because we need our teacher retention number to go up, and not necessarily the teacher retaining teachers of those that are quality? So I think the board and the OSSI should really think about how do we appropriately measure that before it actually goes on a report card. In terms of high school growth measures, there's options out there. All of those are heavy lifts. There is the PSAT, there's the Explore Plan Act that are like ultimate. If our goal is to be like, are our kids prepared and ready to go to college? There would be a lot of thoughtfulness that needs to happen from parents and teachers and OSSI and school leaders to be like, if we're going to start with like the SAT and the ACT as being our ultimate goal and having performance doing well on that. There are the PSATs in both the 11th grade and the 10th grade. There is also the Explore, the Plan, and the ACT that is a linked set of assessments. But again, there would need to be a lot of exploration on the validity and reliability of using those assessments for accountability purposes before actually doing it. That's a heavy lift. That doesn't mean that it's not possible.
Thank you.
Board members, really, in order, this is the first time we're doing this, so in order to do within the 2-minute deadline, could you shorten your questions so that they have time to answer? Because I would like to hear the answer.
They did great.
All right. Mr. Batchelor, I know you have a question.
Oh, no, Madam President, I just wanted to say very quickly, first, thank you all for your service on the ESSA task force. We should never take lightly when residents decide to devote their time and energy to something like this. So we want to thank you for your input and for joining us tonight. I think you're both right. I think, to Mr. Boots' point, design is very important, and I'm very interested in that conversation because obviously how it's presented really dictates how many of our families see it as a tool and use it. And that's the whole point, is that we want this information accessible, but when we publish it, we want folks to use it. And to Ms. Fuchs' point, obviously we want information on it that families really care about, right? The quality of their school environment and the type of coursework and care that children are going to get are important to parents. And I think we need to figure out every way possible to make sure that information is captured in a way that's helpful and that helps parents choose the very best school community for their young person. So I'm really excited that both of you are serving, and I know we're in good hands in this process, so thank you very much.
Just wanted to add something to that since we have 44 seconds, that there is a lot of things that are on that list that you're looking at tonight. I think the task force plus this board plus OSSE should really be thoughtful about, well, what goes where? So a report card is really about school quality. There's a lot of things on that list that aren't necessarily related to school quality, but might be things that should be on My School DC and on that list there. So where do we put something on a report card versus where do we put it on My School DC are things that should be really thoughtful, because we don't want parents to also get overwhelmed by the report card. We want them to be able to focus on the school quality stuff before getting potentially overwhelmed by the additional measure or the additional pieces of information.
But
that are
that's
listed.
not just test scores and attendance data. We have to start providing additional information.
Well, right, I agree. It's just being thoughtful about I agree with Laura, and but being super thoughtful about, to the point at which are we overwhelming what can be on My School DC versus on the report card. But I agree with Laura that there needs to be additional pieces of information besides test scores.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. And
President Williams.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'd like to make a comment. Thank you. That I think the ESSA task force has been really diligent and have done a lot of work in our communities, and I would like to commend them. Over 2,000 people have responded. That really lets me know and lets the State Board of Education as well as your communities know that we really are out there trying to reach as many families as possible. I do have one quick question for Josh Boots, is that I know you have your own organization and I know you look at data. Have you gathered any data that relates to what schools are doing out there to measure growth in high school? Are there some existing in the city now? I can only think of one because I have a daughter that is in a DCPS school, and they measure their growth. That's how they're able to continue to see where children begin and where they go from year to year. Do you have any information on LEAs or other LEAs or other DCPS schools that are doing that now that can possibly be a starting point for us to possibly look at growth in high school?
Yes, I am. There are different ways that that charter schools, I can't speak to DCPS, that are looking at that. There's charter schools who give the optional PARCC tests, the one in Algebra 1, the ones for Algebra 2, ELA 9, grade. So there's that. There's also the nationally recognized assessment called NWEA MAP, the Measures of Academic Progress, which are specifically designed to look at progress across both ELA and all math moving forward. So they use that. There's also the Achievement Network, who provides interim assessments that they look at sort of growth across just the year. Where did the kids start at the beginning of the year versus where did they end at the end of the year? So not necessarily from one grade to the next, but where when they came into Algebra 1, where did they leave at Algebra 1?
Thank you.
Thank you. This panel is dismissed with our thanks. If you have written testimony, would you leave it over to the left? And Josh, are you going to submit written testimony?
If John Paul wants to translate everything I said, more than happy to do so. I submit it as written testimony as well. I did not want to, I thought that it would be appropriate to just speak off the cuff.
Thank you.
Appreciate the opportunity, thank you.
Our next panel will be Catherine Bellinger, Joe Smith, and Wendy Edwards. Let's start with Ms. Bellinger.
Sure. Good evening, members of the State Board of Education, and thank you for the opportunity to testify tonight. My name is Catherine Bellinger, and I serve as DC Director for Democrats for Education Reform, and our partner 501c3 research and policy organization, Education Reform Now. I'm testifying tonight to applaud the State Board of Education's leadership and strong community engagement these last 6 months during the development of the new state report card as required by the Every Student Succeeds Act. Democrats for Education Reform, DFER, has a long history of engaging in public discussion and advocacy around the Every Student Succeeds Act. We participate in a national coalition that supports effective ESSA implementation. Students Can't Wait. Along with the Education Trust, the Leadership Conference on Civil Rights Education Fund, the Mexican American Legal Defense and Education Fund, Unidos US, the National Center for Learning Disabilities, the National Urban League, and other civic and civil rights groups. And our National Policy Director, Charlie Barone, and his team have worked closely with lawmakers on the Hill to develop and monitor implementation of ESSA. Locally, we have followed closely the creation of DC's state report card, and we applaud your focus on community engagement and opportunities for public input. We have also worked to contribute to the dialogue and engage the public around ESSA. This fall, our 501c3 arm, Education Reform Now, hosted a panel discussion and Q&A about the creation of DC's state report card, with over 50 attendees, including elected officials, teacher and parent leaders, school leaders, and advocates. Panelists included Susie Saavedra, Senior Director for Policy and Legislative Affairs at the National Urban League, Chad Alderman of Bellwether Education Partners, who co-led Bellwether's review of all state ESSA plans, and Gary Briggs of Ed Navigator, a parent support organization based in New Orleans. Panelists urged DC's State Board of Education and the Office of the State Superintendent for Education to design a state report card specifically for families, with the understanding that families use the state report card not only to choose schools, but also to help their existing schools improve. We applaud both the SBOE and OSSI for embracing a family-focused design and a commitment to equity during the state report card design process. OSSI in particular has stepped up their commitment to community engagement and launched its most comprehensive engagement strategy to date through the creation of open source engagement toolkits, hosting conversations in each ward, soliciting feedback through surveys, and partnering with community groups and with the state board to reach historically marginalized populations. DFER acknowledges the work that the state board did to give OSSI this detailed, actionable feedback about what strong community engagement looks like, and we're pleased to see that your feedback was implemented within the last 6 months. We also thank the SBOE ESSA Task Force for working as an active partner for OSSI, providing frequent feedback and serving to elevate issues of importance to families, such as parent engagement, health, physical fitness, social services, and more. Your leadership made a difference in shaping the most recent proposal from OSSI that we are discussing tonight. I'm going to wrap up to say we believe the current proposal is a strong reflection both of requirements in federal law and of additional measures of importance to the DC community. We're grateful to the SBOE for your leadership.
Thank you. Next.
Good evening, members of the Board of Education, State Board of Education. My name is Joe Smith, honest. And I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Eagle Academy Public Charter Schools. Eagle serves over 1,000 students primarily in Ward 6 and Ward 8, and our school configuration is pre-K 3 through grade 3. The reason Eagle has a pre-K 3, by the way, we're in our 15th year and been approved for another 15 years. And we have the pre-K 3 through grade 3 configuration because both the National Association for the Education of Young Children and the majority of educational research supports this grade level configuration as the best for young children. I appreciate the opportunity to share our thoughts on the proposed contents of the new school report card before it is finalized and voted on in February. The Every Student Succeeds Act encourages states to create performance frameworks focused on student growth. We know the State Board agrees based on language included in the district's proposed ESSA plan. Eagle Academy supports this position as well. Growth has been a major component of our school quality score on DC Public Charter School Board's performance management framework. The PMF's academic growth measure for early childhood schools includes math and reading growth for all students in grades kindergarten through grade 3, using nationally recognized early childhood assessments. Our main concern with the proposed OSSE school report card is that it will rate our schools without accounting for the academic growth of any of our students. We end in grade 3. Somehow or another, we've got to get growth counted or it's not fair to schools that end in grade 3. We won't be able to show growth. That's a huge part of your card. Something needs to be done about that, and we're not the only school. Judging the quality of schools like Eagle Academy that primarily serves at-risk students and have a high percentage of children with disabilities, without accounting for growth is a major problem. Many of the 3-year-olds who enroll at Eagle Academy exhibit developmental delays of approximately 18 months. And those enrolling in other grades frequently arrive with two or more grade levels behind and achieving below the 10th percentile on entry. That's all established data. It is typical for us to have students who enter kindergarten barely reading. So we work with those students at their home. We ask that you at least consider finding a way so that we can measure growth, or this report card really does not reflect what we do for our children.
Thank you.
I'm going to have to continue Joe's sentiment. Good evening, President Williams and distinguished members of the State Board of Education. I'm Wendy Edwards, Executive Director of Early Childhood Academy Public Charter School. Early Childhood Academy has served students in pre-K 3 through grade 3 since its opening in August 2005. Our population primarily includes students who reside in the Ward 8 Washington Highlands community. Although we are a school in which 100% of our students qualify for free and reduced lunch, and 75.5% of students are designated as at risk, our school is thriving and remains one of the highest performing schools in the Ward 8 community. Since the Public Charter School Board began ranking Early Childhood Academy on the annual school quality report, we have been consistently ranked as Tier 1. Our third grade reading and math proficiency on the 2017 PARC was above the state average, with 33.3% of ECA students scoring at a level 4 or higher for reading, and 54.2% of ECA students scoring at a level 4 or higher for math. Early Childhood Academy's kindergarten through third grade students also demonstrated solid growth on NWEA measures of academic progress, with a math and reading combined median growth percentile of 67. Regarding the ESSA STAR performance framework proposed by the Office of the State Superintendent of Education, Early Childhood Academy is concerned that based on our pre-kindergarten through third grade configuration, there will be no opportunity to appropriately include the academic growth and achievement of our students. Under the STAR framework, only one of our 6 grade levels will be scored for academic achievement, and no grade levels will be scored for academic growth. Clearly, this will not give parents and the community a comprehensive picture of our school, our accomplishments, and most importantly, our academic program. As a small school, the omission of student growth from the STAR framework is a continuation of the struggles our school has had in attaining recognition by OSSE as a high-performing school. With the implementation of the STAR framework as currently developed, Early Childhood Academy's profile will continue to give a very incomplete picture of what we have achieved. The administration, teachers, and parents of Early Childhood Academy Public Charter School ask the State Board of Education to ensure our school and others with non-traditional grade level configurations be given the same opportunities to present a full profile that contains comprehensive academic data for the school's included grade levels. I thank you for allowing me the opportunity to testify.
Thank you very much. Are there questions from the members? I'm going to grab you a minute so they have time to answer, okay?
What? Well, I mean, I can make comments too. I think that's part of it. But anyway, so first I want to say on the showing of growth at the elementary level, I'm very sympathetic to that issue. It is the same issue that our high schools face. When schools can't show growth, they can't really show parents what is being accomplished. And I understand that it's a complicated thing to do, but I do want to just constantly make the point that everybody in this city, we're going to see these report cards next fall. And if we think this was a shock, this, you know, in these last months, that's going to be a shock also, and it's not going to be an entirely fair profile of the schools that we see. So I'm glad that you raised that. I also want to raise another issue with you since you're both elementary. One of the issues that I have a big concern with is, you know, we've been talking about the whole Blue thing and how outcomes, when we focus on the outcomes, it can lead to unintended consequences. The high school level, it can be pushing kids through to graduation when they're not ready. The elementary school level, what I think it is, and what I've seen a lot, and I've read a lot of the research on it, is that the focus on the reading and math leads to a real de-emphasis on the social studies and the science. And I've heard this a lot at schools. Like I said, there's a lot of research on it. And I wonder how you think about that in your own work, how you try to bring in the social studies, the science, and the arts, because that is where kids learn the background knowledge and the vocabulary that is going to indeed allow them to do well in subsequent grades.
At ECA, we emphasize reading across the curriculum. And when we provide professional development for our teachers, we encourage them to understand that in order to understand social studies, in order to understand science, in order to understand math, children have to be proficient as readers. And so in our reading block, we include a lot of social studies text to integrate those two subjects. In our math and science block, in our science block, we include a lot of math and vice versa, so that students don't see these subjects as isolated, but as interdependent.
Thank you.
I would support that statement in that the way we teach reading is we do teach it through the content areas, even starting with children who are young. You have to be very creative, but we do it. And the same thing for math. When children are looking at math, it's important for them to see it in context and learn it that way. It doesn't mean they don't learn it on its own, but they also learn it in context. So we're able to work in the science, the social studies. We have all of those subjects taught.
Thank you. And I'd just like to say I would encourage the task force and OSSE over time to try to figure out how to do this. Thank you.
Madam President.
So I was just curious about what you think that would look like. I heard your comments that it should reflect growth and it should reflect more of the reality of your schools. So what would that look like?
One of the things you could look at is look where a child begins in our school and where they end up at the end of that year. Most of our children have more than 1 year's growth in a given year. But that has to be reflected in how it can't be just a straight test, are you on the third grade level? If we take in kids in the third grade who are more than 2 years behind and we give them a year's growth, they still are not going to be at the third grade level. It's impossible. You've got to have time to be able to pull that up. Even if kids are growing 1.5 years, which is a lot in any given year, you can't achieve that. So you've got to look at what is the rate of growth of a student. By the way, this is I spent 35 years as an educational research professor. So I've been arguing this for a very long time. You need to look at the rate of growth to determine how well schools are doing.
Right. So that is an element of the accountability framework. I thought you were speaking specifically to the lack of growth in early childhood. Did I misunderstand?
You can't demonstrate it if all you're looking at is third grade. You need to look at first, second. You need to show that.
So you're talking about expanding it below third grade?
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. And
given that there aren't standardized assessments across the charter sector, how would that be portrayed?
We do have, Public Charter School Board does that with its performance management framework, and we do have, the NWEA is one of the ones that we use, starting in kindergarten that goes right through grade 3. And actually, it goes a lot higher than that, but we take it through grade 3.
Right. So you'd report out something like that?
Yeah.
My, before I left, my special ed coordinator urged me to say something about our special ed population, because if we are only reporting achievement at third grade, then that really does not give our students who have IEPs an opportunity to show the growth that they have achieved through the year, given the fact that most of our children who have IEPs are not on grade level.
Thank you. Mr. Bassler.
Thank you, Madam President. First, I just want to say to Ms. Bellinger, thank you for the work you and your organization have done around, I guess, around community outreach around this issue. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of work being done by Superintendent Kang and OSSI, and obviously by members of the task force and the state board, but you can never have too much help to capture the diverse voices in our city, and so I want to really thank you for that. Mr. Smith and Ms. Edwards, one, I want to thank you for serving the young people in Ward 8 and for your honest account of kind of where we are and where this leaves your school communities, which obviously have very unique challenges with these type of assessments and measurements, and I think that was important for us to hear, and I think the recommendations that you passed on to my Ward 1 colleague hopefully will help us kind of right-size this. And obviously, you all know that in communities like ours, having a solid growth measure is going to matter, especially as parents want to make choices. And obviously, I visited both of your campuses and know the great work that you're doing with the students and the progress that our students are making. And so I urge all of my colleagues, and I know Dr. Woodruff is interested in this too, to make sure we do everything we can to show the great things that are happening in your school communities, even when you have some challenging configurations that can't necessarily be standardized. So thank you for that feedback, and I look forward to working with all of my colleagues to make sure we get it right for you and your students. Thanks.
Dr. Woodruff.
Thank you. I would like to thank you for bringing up the early childhood. I am an early childhood specialist. That is where I started. And my question is, the instrument that the PMF, is there one tool that all the early childhood programs are using, or do you all get to choose? What validates this on the PMF?
The Public Charter School Board mandates the assessment tool that's to be reported. Schools are free to use whatever assessment tools they choose internally for their own database. However, the Charter School Board for the PMF, which is the School Quality Report, requires that kindergarten through second grade be assessed in reading and math using the NWEA measures of academic progress.
Thank you.
I really appreciate your testimony. I worked in early childhood education for 10 years and had to give it up to serve here because I couldn't do both at the same time effectively. So I appreciate your comments, and thank you for your comments. If there's no more questions, the panel is dismissed.
I would have more, but I don't think I do want to say thanks to everybody. I was being so quick that I didn't get to say thanks to all of you and have a special question for Catherine next time, Catherine.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm
looking forward to our continued discussions on the content of the school report card. If there's no other business before the board, I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The State Board of Education meeting of this District of Columbia is adjourned at 7 o'clock.